Today we're going to discuss stat changes that will take effect in February, adjusting how multiple hero abilities function. What's going on, my friends from Clash of Clans? My name is Joe, and yes, I know it's been a little while, but this was a topic that I could not overlook, considering I'm working on the Rush Base account, upgrading hero abilities, and I just upgraded one of these abilities like halfway, and here we go with some stat decreases, which we'll get into in a moment. Let's go ahead and kick things off with the stat increases, aka the buffs. The Vamp stash for the Barbarian King will receive an average of 102% damage per second increase for all 18 levels. Reason for this change is that the Vamp stash has always had a small but loyal group of fans, but it's been overshadowed by other options for the King. With this buff, the developer hopes more players will give it a shot and find it a fun and viable choice. Yes. The King's Barbarian Puppet will also receive an average of 10% increase for the hit point increase category. Basically, when the King has this ability equipped, he will have more health. These changes are being applied more for the newer players of Clash of Clans. The developer wants it to feel more like a solid starter option. The Archer Puppet for the Archer Queen will also receive stat increases in two different categories. Both the damage per second and the health recovery stats will increase by an average of 10% for all 18 levels. The developer says that similar to the King's equipment, they want this equipment to be a viable starter option for players experimenting with the Queen's abilities. Then we have the Grand Warden's Life Gem, which appears to be getting a stat increase in 3 different categories. All levels of this ability will gain an average of 10% buff to damage per second increase, 10% buff to hit point increase, and an average of 33% to max hit point increase. In the developer's words, the Life Gem has been lagging behind compared to other Warden equipment. This buff is aimed to make it a more solid choice, especially for armies with bigger troops that take up more housing space. The Royal Gem for the Champion will also gain stat increases in 2 different categories, with hit point increase going up 50% per level, and then an average of 30% stat buff for the damage per second category. Again, like previous abilities mentioned in this section, the Royal Gem has had the lowest use rate and hit rate for all of the Royal Champion's equipment. Even though it's a common ability, the developer feels that it deserves more love. Now, I'll share my opinion more at the end of the video about these changes because I feel like some of these are a bit of a waste. Now for the changes that we did not ask for. The King's Earthquake Boot's damage percentage will be decreased from level 9 to level 18. The biggest loss is at level 18 with a 33.33% cut on the ability, reducing the damage from 60% down to 40%. Oh, and the ability will not kill skeletons anymore. The developer's reason for this change is targeting what a lot of us who stay up to date with the current game meta trends is the Quake Boots paired with Spiky Ball turned into an unbeatable combo for higher Town Hall levels. We're reducing the damage to buildings on the boots so they still do their job of breaking walls, which is good, of course, but now they won't completely destroy everything when paired with the Spiky Ball. Also, the ability will no longer affect skeleton trap troops, so the King might get distracted more often. So essentially, he's going to get stopped, shot, and taken out, and all he did for us was open up walls. Might as well just bring earthquakes, right? Then we have the radius on the Warden's Fireball ability being reduced by 16.67% for levels 18 through 23. The developer claims that they have moved the last radius upgrade to a higher ability level to keep things fair in competitive gameplay, which only really affects like 1% of players in the game anyways. And of course, the last ability being adjusted is the new Royal Champion's Electro Boots. Stat decreases for 2 different categories, self-healing per second losing about 20 to 25% of points in the higher levels, and the aura damage per second losing points at different percentages from level 1 to level 27. And naturally, as expected, the reason for this change is that the Electro Boots have been a bit too strong, being the most used equipment in the game. They wanted to tone it down to make it more balanced, especially with the invisibility spell, duration duration also being reduced by 0.25 seconds per level. So the invisibility spell is also receiving a nerf in this update. Look, I'm really trying not to be negative here, you know, like it's really hard for me to come into these videos and show a bunch of excitement for things that I agree with to a degree, because the game should be balanced just like every other game out there for players that are even not playing competitively, because the game can get really boring when there are certain items in the game that are just overpowered and it's pointless to upgrade other things. But this is what I do know after years of covering this game, is that most Clash of Clans players only want to know what are the best items in the game to upgrade, and they focus their resources on those things. They don't really care to upgrade everything because the game takes so long to max out anyways. They just want to know what is the best and they want to upgrade them. Yeah, sure, in reality there are 24 different options available for abilities in the blacksmith, but the equipment is not exactly easy to upgrade, is it? And truth be told, not every player that touches this game has every piece of equipment maxed out, so that way when they make these changes, possibly making an ability rendered useless, that they can just switch to the next maxed out ability and fall in line with what's the next best thing, right? For me, what's really frustrating as a normal player, I know a lot of you guys just see me as like this big time YouTuber or something, but I play Clash of Clans just like everybody else, and I don't spend a ton of money on items in the game every time they release those, you know, options to buy. Or basically what's happened is an ability was released exactly 1 month ago-ish, give it a couple days, right? And now it's getting nerfed after I wasted ore on it. The same thing applies to maxing out the Quake boots. I mean, at level 18, going from 60% damage down to 40% is a significant decrease in power on that ability. So is it going to be just as effective as it was prior to these changes being released, or was the ore just wasted? If anything, I honestly feel like the thing that should be done to make this all fair for everybody, because I understand that the developer is going to make changes to the game to try to improve it, but I think it would be only fair that they offered an option for us to be able to take an ability and reduce its level back to level 1, compensating us the ore spent. That way we can shift that ore over to a different ability, because not everybody's spending a crap ton of money on Clash of Clans. What do you guys think?